Hi, welcome back to Zach of All Trades. I'm Zach, and it is with sadness that I must report my shed is dead. Rest assured, we will not let it go to waste, neither the materials nor the lessons learned from this catastrophic failure. Today I'll be dismantling the wreckage of this shed in order to reuse some of the parts of it, and while doing so I'm going to do my very best to sort of analyze and pick apart the pieces of what caused it to fail. Where were the different failures at, and what things could I have done differently? Many of you are subscribers to this channel as a result of this shed, and many of you made comments about how I could have done it better. So let's see how many of your comments would have maybe kept this shed standing up. First off, we're just going to take a little bit of a walk around, sort of survey the damage, and see what sort of things that you can pick out. It is February of 2021, and the truth of it is that this shed collapsed almost a year ago. I believe it was March last year, and I was all geared up to come check out the damage, drag my stuff out from underneath it, and then the current global pandemic hit and I was unable to travel. So here it is a year later. We've now moved up here, and it's time to it's time to clean up my mess, basically. And so I've had a year to kind of think about what happened here, to look at some pictures. My brother came over and took some pictures and sent to me, and I kind of analyzed the photos and had my mind made up exactly how it had failed. It turns out that I believe I was wrong. Let's take a look at what I've seen. Now, this shed came down in a really big windstorm last year, and after looking at the photos of it, my initial assessment was that the wind had come from the south, which would have been coming into the mouth of the shed, and had picked it up and sort of wishboned it and caused it to do like that. I assumed that was the case, partially because these pieces of rebar that I have holding the place down, there were only, I believe, 6 of them. And they're not more than, I don't know, 18 inches at the most long. They might be more like 12 inches. Admittedly, that's something that I wasn't especially crazy about when I very first built the place. But the truth of the matter is, I sort of ran out of time and resources, kind of. And I figured that 6 kind of wimpy little hold downs were going to be better than no perfect hold downs. So I figured that when I had put them in, the ground was dry enough that the rebar held through the immediate windstorm that happened 3 weeks after I put it up, and then had held through the next number of years. But when the windstorm came through a year ago, is that an eagle? This place is cool. It was springtime, and that the ground was a little bit more moist, and when the wind came up, it allowed it to pull the stakes right out. It turns out I think I was wrong about that. And here's why I think that. There is a hold down right under there, if you can see it, and that sill plate is right next to the rock that it was initially sitting on. And as you look at the OSB on the side here, it doesn't look as though it got wishboned. Looking at it from a different angle, it would seem that it simply got blown over. I really think that instead of one leg getting picked up and it wishboning and going flat like that, which would show it a lot more flat, I think what happened was that the wind, there was enough surface area on this side and it pushed it. There was no real support in the middle here. It pushed it and collapsed it in on itself, which is why you have half of the Titanic over here. You got a quarter and the other half that are sort of laying on top of each other. See, here's where I think the Titanic first struck the iceberg. This is the lower quarter. Then the next quarter is right here, and underneath is the whole left half, which is what makes me think that it got pushed and just smashed down that way. That's what I currently think. After having looked it over pretty in depth, I am going to dismantle it and see if there are any other clues that show up to shed light on any other things. I think part of the contributors were not necessarily my 6 wimpy hold downs, because it doesn't seem like the lack of hold down was really a problem. The sills are still basically in the same place that they're supposed to be. But what I think was a problem is that the supports on the top here, I think collar ties is the right term. I've been calling them collar ties. The collar ties up top were weak at the very, very best. There was no ridge beam or ridge pole, as many people pointed out that I should have put in there. I agree. I wanted to put one in there right off the bat, but again, time and resources, mostly time really. Another thing was that there wasn't much for bracing. There weren't any triangles really in the middle. Most of the bracing that I had went straight across, and so I think that allowed, when a big enough wind came from the side, I think that allowed it to just push and collapse the whole thing over. So come on along with me as I dismantle this, if nothing else than to clean up the mess. I think some of this OSB is going to be useful for the next iteration. It's coming, and we'll see what we can figure out. I do find it interesting that the blocks that I used to separate the boards, all of them, at least on the front bow of it, all of them are broken with the grain. Now, a bunch of people pointed out, hey, you need to put those the other way so that they'll have more strength, meaning perpendicular there, with the grain perpendicular rather, which is true. Would have had more strength this way. It wouldn't have broken like that. But in that case, the screws probably would have pulled out. So I don't know. I think that's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But they're all broken.